Story 1. The person who ordered the removal of charging stations is now telling people to buy cars that rely on those stations. How do I feel about it? Let me think. Story 2. I'm pretty sure it's against the law for a sitting United States president to do that, but when has that ever stopped or affected that individual? Story 3. People who voted for Trump voted for this. When we tried to tell them this was who the president is, they just laughed about it. Fast forward, and they do not care. They do not actually care about who the president is or what he should or shouldn't be doing. In fact, as he said, he could shoot someone in broad daylight, and they would shrug it off like it's nothing. He is doing everything an oligarch does, and they still think he will somehow improve conditions for them. Look at tariffs. They have caused massive price spikes, and they do not really care. Look at cryptocurrency. A non-elected foreign national is rummaging through our systems, breaking things, and they are excited about the word efficiency, as if it means something. While things were not really great with efficiency before, this is not Silicon Valley. You cannot break things and innovate the same way when millions of lives are at stake. People rely on those systems, particularly the elderly and infirm. They show no empathy until it affects them through job loss or income loss. They just think of the bad ones and that's it. Their misinformation has consumed their critical thinking. For the rest of us, it is a crime explicitly forbidden, and he and the Secretary of Commerce should be impeached and removed from office. However, there is no longer any rule of law regarding him or his inner circle. It's a done deal. Story 4. The individuals who reference the Biden crime family, quote, do not understand the extent of corruption within this administration. Story 5. I am glad to see the overwhelming response. It's not just me. The government needs a reality check. It is concerning to see government officials publicly endorsing specific companies like Tesla. Their role should be to serve the public interest, not promote individual stocks or products. Transparency and ethical behavior are crucial for maintaining trust in our leaders. Story 6. It is uncommon for government officials to publicly promote a particular company, as it can lead to concerns about conflicts of interest or bias. Such actions may erode trust in their impartiality and blur the distinction between their public responsibilities and private interests. Story 7. It is against the law, but nothing matters anymore. What is one more morally wrong action at best, or blatantly illegal action at worst, when faced with the numerous issues that have arisen since 2016? This country is severely troubled because a significant portion of voting adults are genuinely brainwashed, morally corrupt, poorly informed, or outright evil. The individuals in power, along with the billionaires exploiting the middle class, are taking advantage of this situation and are truly harmful. Story 8. When you spend 4 years on Facebook posting that electric vehicles need a $20,000 battery every 2 years and won't run in winter, but your leader just told you to go out and buy one. Story 9. The most significant concern for me is not the absurdity of the situation, but rather how many people still accept it. I cannot comprehend how anyone could fail to find that incredibly pitiful and inappropriate. Story 10. If you needed any more evidence of the oligarchic coup, it is crystal clear. Capitalists are using federal powers to protect their small corporate empires. Story 11. Democrats need to brand the Trump administration as Republican, not MAGA. After the dust settles on the chaos surrounding Trump, the Republican establishment will disown the Trump years and claim innocence. Story 12. It makes me angry that all of this would have ended a presidency in the past, but now it is just shrugged off. Story 13. The Hatch Act is illegal. Nothing is done by the book in this administration, which is nothing but a grift. Additionally, every Tesla truck is up for recall because it falls apart on the freeway, posing a danger to other vehicles. Story 14. It would be an impeachable offense in a normal timeline, but so are about 100 other things he has done since Tuesday. Story 15. I am certain that if a Democrat acted to benefit a large donor, there would be an outcry for accountability. I do not care what party you belong to or whether I voted for you. This behavior is unethical and a serious misuse of public office. Every elected official, regardless of their affiliation, who allows this to go unchecked is a disappointment. I am frustrated with the majority of people currently in office. Story 16. It is illegal on multiple levels, including violations of the Hatch Act and stock manipulation, to name a couple. However, we are now in a post-law and order era in the United States, allowing those individuals to act without consequence. Story 17. This person is causing significant harm to the economy while expecting us to purchase cars that cost $70,000. Even if I were interested in a Tesla, this individual is doing everything possible to ensure I cannot afford one. Story 18. I am not shocked or surprised, but I should be. This is not normal, yet it feels that way. I am overwhelmed by the amount of chaotic events occurring, to the point that situations like this do not seem as serious to me, which I am certain is the intended effect, and it is working. Story 19. Elon Musk is seeking validation. His stock is declining due to his controversial actions on live television and subsequent joking about them while actively undermining the US government. Story 20. I believe they used to call that a conflict of interest. If I had a different car company, I would probably take legal action. Story 21. Well, America voted for a television actor. Trump loves to create advertisements. If you have a business and donate enough to him, he will create one for you. Story 22. I am very frustrated. I strongly disapprove of Trump and his entire administration. They are all selfish and greedy individuals. Story 23. I am quite put off by the blatant ethics violations and the apparent lack of enforcement strategies for ethics in elected offices. The silver lining is the fact that the stock dipped during both endorsements. Story 24. It is strange that conservatives want to keep the government out of capitalism, but this administration has been inserting the government into free trade to a degree that makes me feel they are closer to communism than the left. With the surge of government support for Tesla, a history of promoting certain brands, and the decision to rely heavily on tariffs, we are moving further away from being a capitalist country. Story 25. Just another display of behavior that we have come to expect from this individual and their group. Can you imagine how the Republicans would react if President Biden had done anything similar? Story 26. I wish people didn't think that putting a convicted felon who ran fraudulent businesses in office was a good idea just because he is rich, had a reality television show, and made inappropriate comments. Story 27. I don't feel good, but I do feel unsurprised. The rule of law in America is dead, and the Republicans are responsible for its demise. Story 28. Just more evidence that Musk holds a higher position than Trump. Why else would he try to protect this specific Musk-owned company while criticizing the rest of the economy? I hope it gets worse for Tesla. I wouldn't even consider buying one regardless of politics. They are a questionable company with poor quality control and customer service. And the only new car they have released in 5 years is over $100,000 and is of very low quality. Story 29. It is absolutely illegal and defines an impeachable offense. However, Republicans have concluded that corruption and the destruction of the United States as a democratic republic are acceptable if it allows them to rule the country instead of serving it. Story 30. Crony capitalism is detrimental to everyone. I've heard people say, well, it's always been this way. No, it has not. Let's please not normalize this situation. It is not acceptable. Story 31. Can you please not interfere with the president when he is trying to manage this country? I am tired of people getting in the way of Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Herbert Camacho. Story 32. Assuming the United States survives this presidency, I hope this makes it clear that we need much stronger checks on power and corruption in all branches of government. Story 33. While being against green energy, it is clear that these individuals have no convictions unless it involves making money. Story 34. Shady, but we already knew the scam king would do something as self-serving as this. No surprise. Story 35. The fact that people can receive domestic terrorism charges for vandalizing a Tesla, which did not harm anyone but damaged replaceable property, while those who illegally stormed the Capitol, resulting in injuries to police officers and one death the next day, are not tried as domestic terrorists is unacceptable. These individuals even brought a gallows to attempt to hang the Vice President and Nancy Pelosi, yet they were not considered terrorists but rather labeled as patriots. I am frustrated with every one of those individuals and this entire administration. Story 36. It is illegal and they know it. I have followed the laws for 50 years, and now I wonder why they do not actually matter. Story 37. I am not even mad anymore. I am just disappointed. The anger is present, but it has cooled and crystallized. Story 38. As a registered employee in the finance industry, I cannot buy a single share of stock in any companies I have a relationship with. I cannot mention who they are online. I cannot like their content on social media. I cannot accept gifts without filing them with management. Why can someone else do so much more than I can, even joke about it, and it be acceptable? Story 39. I am not surprised that the dishonest individuals associated with the White House are engaging in unethical behavior. I would be more shocked if someone said, Donald Trump went for 6 consecutive hours without breaking a single law. Story 40. The individual is exploiting the government. He will sell it to the wealthy, and we will all suffer as a result. Story 41. This is an abomination to the ideals of governance and civic duty. It is absolutely absurd that this is allowed. I thought the right-wing base would finally turn the corner, and maybe some have, but most have been able to rationalize this and continue their cult-like worship. I have lost all trust in the supposed checks and balances of the system. Story 42. We now have a planned economy and an open oligarchy. Essentially, we have one party, as oligarchs are unlikely to invest billions only to lose again. It seems the Soviet Union has ultimately prevailed. Story 43. As an American, the government feels compromised, which makes me incredibly sad and frustrated. I would like to see change towards a mature government that understands the need for checks and balances and can engage in difficult conversations in public. Consequently, part of me wonders whether everything will fall apart or if we will just become a more dystopian society with less moral guidance for a long time without really finding grounding that appeals to both logic and morality. I think this is unfortunately the most likely scenario. This leads me to believe that we may end up ceding our dominance to artificial intelligence once embodied agents become competent enough. If we allow our primal urges to dominate our governance, then we deserve to be guided by entities that are more fundamentally rational. I am unsure, though. It is all such a mess at this point. Perhaps another country will figure it out, and the United States will lose its superpower status. In most of my premonitions, the United States does not seem to be in a better position. Careless actions driven by shallow ideologies do not inspire confidence that we have skilled leaders at the helm. Story 44. This has never been attempted before because that is against the rules that we had in our newly minted third world country. Story 45. I feel horrified. What is even more horrifying is that my parents, who raised me to value democracy and freedom, support the administration that does this. Story 46. They could purchase billboards on every street, commercials during every break, advertisements on every video, and flyers raining down from helicopters around the clock. I am still not buying his car. Story 47. Anyone who says the phrase both sides are the same in my presence had better provide hard, detailed, and credible evidence of any Democratic president doing anything comparable, or be prepared to be shut down due to how tired I am of hearing that bold-faced lie. Story 48. It's the same type of people who say, which part of illegal don't you understand? It's only illegal if they are not the ones breaking the law. Story 49. It is illegal for a government official to promote a private business for obvious reasons. Story 50. I believe the situation of prolonged silence and inaction is concerning. If there is to be any resistance and it hasn't occurred yet, we are in serious trouble. Story 51. How do you think I feel? I feel outraged and already sick of this 2 months in, with only 46 to go. Story 52. In democracies, this is called blatant corruption. In autocracies, this is considered normal. Which category does the USA fall into? Story 53. I find it disgusting and illegal, but the fraud squatting in a dirty diaper does not recognize laws he does not agree with. Story 54. It's unfortunate. I wish individuals of a certain political affiliation could understand that although I strongly dislike Trump, this is not a politically targeted comment. He has been shallow and insincere, with a character that feels depraved. He has been a disruptive presence and a source of mockery for decades. Who goes bankrupt running a casino? It's no surprise that his brother struggled with addiction. Story 55. They would be in the streets if Biden did even a fraction of what Trump has done, so the hypocrisy is getting old now. Story 56. Conflict of interest, but when you elect a convicted criminal as president, what were you expecting? Story 57. It is reprehensible and represents blatant corruption. We should be ashamed of what we have allowed. Story 58. Grifters will be grifters. Anyone who buys a faulty Tesla at this point is doing it to be antisocial. Story 59. From a Belgian perspective, it is cringe to me. I believe it may be counterproductive in the end. I find it a bit foolish, to be honest. Story 60. I cannot imagine a single conservative being able to defend this action successfully. The level of unprofessional, anti-American, partisan behavior this administration is displaying is unacceptable. Every American should be appalled. Story 61. It's disgusting. Probably illegal in multiple ways, but it doesn't matter because the Trump administration has been leaning into outrageous actions and casually disregarding the law so much that we're desensitized to it. That's the goal. Normalize this absurdity so it's not as noticeable when they take bigger risks. We, the people, can't actually do anything about it in time to be effective beyond actively targeting the softer target, that is Tesla, until it's forced to take drastic measures like separating from Elon Musk, which would also jeopardize his control of Twitter, a massive blow to the right. Strongly worded letters and online rants aren't effective. Peaceful protests, by design, aren't effective. Going through courts and typical bureaucratic methods of resistance are all too slow or weak. The individuals in office representing us aren't effective on one side, and the other is in on it, doing exactly what their blind, hate-driven constituents voted for. Some are slowly waking up to what the rest of us have been warning against, but others are doubling down as this administration ramps up disinformation efforts. The Democrats in office, as usual, are too focused on their careers to say or do anything that actually rocks the boat. They're obsessed with the image of diplomacy, decency, and bipartisanship to a fault. They should meet fire with fire, but instead, they're meeting it with passive-aggressive signs and colorful jackets while everything they've always claimed to stand for is being torn down around them. Truly feckless and pitiful. All of this serves as an important lesson in how weak our government is to actual abuse, likely because this level of it was never expected. Also, it highlights how gullible and, quite frankly, ignorant much of the population is to allow themselves to be whipped up into a reactionary, regressive frenzy by those seeking and abusing power for their own interests. It's a lesson for the left on the importance of rallying behind opposition to a genuine threat, rather than nitpicking their single feasible option over trivial matters, which undermines a campaign and costs their side one of the most important elections in recent history. A car company advertisement is the least of our concerns, or Ukraine's concern, or Palestine's concern, or anyone else directly impacted by the actions of this administration. It's no exaggeration to say that those of us who aren't harmed by these actions or whatever challenge arises next will likely be dealing with the effects for decades, generations. Even if it were stopped immediately, significant damage has been done in just a few months, and the indoctrination of the supporters will remain or likely worsen. Story 62. Every day, I am increasingly surprised that Republicans do not seem to care about the issues they often claim to prioritize. The price of eggs, gas, and produce? No concern. Treatment of military personnel, veterans, or hardworking social servants? No concern. Police? No concern. Respect for the Constitution? No concern. Unelected officials with unusual amounts of power? No concern. Intelligence gathering and maintaining superpower status? No concern. Farmers? No concern. Treating the office of President of the United States with dignity? No concern at all. Remember how wearing a tan suit was considered unbecoming for a president? Story 63. It is surprising that there was discussion about investigating individuals who bought GameStop stock, yet no mention of this. Story 64. I don't think the people who voted for and still support Trump are the Tesla demonstration, so it seems like a silly stunt. Story 65. I feel that we are discovering that many laws intended to hold our governing officials accountable lack enforcement. Story 66. He also said everyone is going to buy $30,000 Tesla robots because the average American has $30,000 just lying around for that. These people are delusional. Story 67. It disgusts me. A president should not promote a product, especially when the owner of that company bought his way into the White House. Story 68. If I had been inclined to buy either, their endorsement would have changed my mind to an absolute no. No Trump steaks, no Trump University, no Trump dollars. Now, if you are selling Trump toilet paper, Story 69. America has become a joke to the rest of the world, and its citizens seem to embrace it, except for the occasional apology post on Reddit that makes them feel good. Story 70. Since there are no longer laws for these individuals or accountability, this is completely expected. Everything is now transactional in support of making wealthy individuals richer. The rest of us simply do not matter. Story 71. I don't think we are ever going back to stability. I am making long-term plans to get my family out of the country so my child can have a future. This place is fundamentally broken. Story 72. If Joe Biden had done it, he would have been publicly criticized by the same people who are looking the other way today. Story 73. I think people are shocked and surprised by how far the office of the president has crossed the boundary of what they would expect a president to do and not do. Even senators, representatives, and other individuals in power do not know how to respond, allowing him to get away with it. The more he gets away with it, the further he pushes past the line. Story 74. Shouldn't all the other car companies sue the Trump administration? Can they, or are they too scared? It seems incredibly unfair to anyone working for Ford, Chevrolet, Chrysler, Honda, and others. My dad sold cars for a living, and giving the competition free commercials is an inappropriate use of our tax dollars. Story 75. It is disappointing, but there is nothing that can be done to stop it. No one is enforcing laws regarding the president. Story 76. Remember when conservatives accused Biden of abusing the office of the presidency? This is what abuse actually looks like. Story 77. Do you remember his first term when we could not stop asking about the Hatch Act for at least the first year? I remember. It's concerning that we have normalized his misconduct to the extent that he and his associates are running multiple businesses, many of which are funded by undisclosed sources through cryptocurrency, in plain sight. We had a saying during that term, none of this is normal, but it seems we have forgotten. Story 78. I live in Europe and find the constant United States headlines in nearly every subreddit aggravating, to be honest. I have unsubscribed from almost every news subreddit, and I think I will leave AskReddit soon as well. Story 79. We expect more professionalism from football coaches, from high school to professional levels, than we do from our government leaders. Story 80. It doesn't seem like it's the official job description, and it's illegal. However, imagine if Republicans actually impeached Trump. That would be something. Story 81. Regardless of legality, it is embarrassing to have them selling products for a private company. Story 82. The corruption is obvious and blatant. It's embarrassing. Why won't his supporters call him out on it? They are the only ones that matter to him right now, yet they won't even hold him to the lowest standard. Story 83. I feel like it is illegal, and we now know for sure that the law does not apply to anyone but poor everyday citizens. If the penalty for breaking the law is a fine, the only crime is being poor. Story 84. It is embarrassing because it is being accepted as acceptable even though it is not. There seem to be no rules anymore, and nobody appears to care. We need to vote out every politician who does not start standing up for the law. Without recognition of laws and respect for them, they are pointless. Story 85. The situation should be investigated for stock manipulation. Tesla recently announced a significant recall of all the Cybertrucks they produced. They were aware that this announcement would affect stock prices. Therefore, they appeared on television days before the announcement to boost the stock value and minimize the decline. If any executives traded shares during this period, it could be considered insider trading. Story 86. Literally and openly violating the law. According to 5 Code of Federal Regulations Section 2635.702, an employee shall not use their public office for personal gain, for the endorsement of any product, service, or enterprise, or for the private gain of friends, relatives, or individuals with whom the employee is affiliated in a non-governmental capacity, including non-profit organizations of which the employee is an officer or member, and individuals with whom the employee has or seeks employment or business relations. Story 87. I wonder if Trump will use government funds to buy Tesla stock for the government. If he does, perhaps the government will buy out Tesla completely. Story 88. This president? Completely unsurprised. He has been a con artist from day one and was a promoter for Goya beans during his last term. Story 89. I believe both of them should immediately lose their jobs and be banned from ever holding any form of office again. Story 90. A clear abuse of power. I am also glad that at least some of this exploitation of America is voluntary. I can avoid that part. Story 91. I really don't understand how people would knowingly buy a car that others will hate and target. I wouldn't spend money to make myself a target. Story 92. Obviously, he does whatever he wants. He is a very dangerous man who could cause a third world war. Story 93. It is unacceptable regardless of which political party appointee is involved. Wrong is wrong, whether it is done by the opposition or by the person you voted for. Story 94. Other than it being illegal, I guess, criminals are going to commit crimes. It seems like a waste of time to have made laws and a constitution with this person in charge. Story 95. It hasn't worked. The right doesn't know how to boycott anything. Kid Rock went out and bought all that Bud Light he shot up on video and still serves it at his bar, making the company money. They're phonies. The world is rejecting Elon Musk. This is much bigger than just what is happening in the United States. He may launch himself to Mars just to get away. Story 96. America is done as a country. When your president and his cabinet cannot be bothered to follow the law, and everyone just shrugs and says, "What can we do?" Story 97. I personally don't care because I invested in Tesla about 10 years ago and have lost a significant amount of net worth in the past month alone. In hindsight, I should have shorted the stock after he and Elon started their antics. Story 98. I wonder when the American people will start taking action against being ruled by a lawless dictator. Story 99. American democracy has fallen to a con man who is also a seditious terrorist and convicted rapist with ties to Russia. Republicans have abdicated responsibility and do not uphold the law. Stacking the Supreme Court with partisan individuals was not sufficient for them. Now they simply disregard the law. Story 100. I am less bothered by it than by people vandalizing private vehicles. I will not buy anything endorsed by Donald Trump. He turned the Oval Office into a merchandise store and started a cryptocurrency. Story 101. I feel like they are breaking the law, but at this point, they have learned that nobody will do anything about it. It might as well be that there are no laws for them. Story 102. It seems highly questionable, and I would appreciate an explanation from a supporter of the MAGA movement as to why this is not considered illegal. I genuinely want to understand. Please clarify. Story 103. It's a national embarrassment, but at least it's not causing direct harm to marginalized people. Story 104. Outrage is a very relative thing. Back in 2001, then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld made a speech in which he stated that the Pentagon was unable to account for approximately $2.3 trillion it had received from taxpayers. Normally, this speech would have caused a much bigger fallout and a lot of yelling, except that he delivered it on September 10th, and it was overshadowed by events the next day. So, this incident, which would have been despicable and outrageous at any other time, is lost in the overwhelming wave of misconduct from the administration. That is probably their intention. Even the legitimate press cannot keep up with the negative developments. Story 105. I feel like it is one of Elon's last attempts to avoid defaulting on all the debt he has accumulated. I am excited to see his entire plan fail. I know it would eliminate him as a world power, but hopefully it will make it harder for him to leverage himself after this current regime fails. Story 106. I would like to know how much Tesla stock these billionaires have bought this week. They are likely shorting Tesla stock. Story 107. One point most people ignore is that I don't believe Trump helped Tesla sales at all. In reality, he caused more harm. Most people likely to buy electric vehicles are not Trump supporters. If anything, they will choose other brands. However, the majority of the MAGA crowd is known to be strongly anti-electric vehicle. I don't see any of them switching to Tesla after the commercial. Story 108. Follow the money. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.